AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she accused me of acting like I'm better than her. So, I, 29F, am the successful sibling in my family, though I've never said that out loud because it feels kind of gross to even think about. I just happen to make some different choices than my sister, Emma, 34F. We both grew up in a small town with pretty traditional parents. She got married young, had 3 kids by 25, and has been a stay-at-home mom ever since. I went to college, moved to the city, and worked my way up in marketing. I now have a decent salary, live in a nice apartment, and have no kids. Emma and I were close as kids, but as adults, things have changed. Whenever I visit home, she makes little jabs about my fancy city life, or says things like, "Must be nice to sleep in on weekends," or "Not all of us can afford takeout every night." I usually laugh it off because I know she's tired and stressed, but it does wear me down after a while. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I took a week off work to visit our parents and help out because our dad had a minor surgery. Emma called me the night before I came and asked if I could watch the kids for a few days while she and her husband took a little anniversary trip. I said I'd be happy to help for one night, but I couldn't commit to multiple days because I was coming primarily to help Mom with Dad's recovery. She sounded disappointed, but said she understood. The next day I got there, and the first thing Emma said when she saw me was, "Oh, good. You can start with bedtime tonight." No hello, no. How was the drive? Just instant delegation. I went along with it because I didn't want to start drama. But the next day, she dropped the bomb that she'd already booked a 3-day trip and expected me to watch her kids the whole time. I reminded her I had agreed to one night, not 3. She got upset and said she and her husband really needed this, and that I was being selfish for not helping family. I told her I wasn't going to back out of helping Mom and Dad, but I wasn't her built-in babysitter. She rolled her eyes and said, "Right, you're too good for that. Miss Corporate doesn't do diapers." That honestly stung. I told her I wasn't too good to help, but I have my own life and responsibilities too. She said, "Your only responsibility is to yourself. You wouldn't understand what it's like to have a real family." That was the end of the conversation because I walked away before I said something worse. She ended up canceling her trip, but things between us have been icy ever since. A few days later, I went over to drop off some groceries for Mom and Dad, and Emma came by to pick something up. She ignored me completely until Mom asked if I could watch the kids the following weekend while Emma ran errands. I said, "No, I'm heading back to the city that day." Emma finally snapped and said, "Of course you are. You never help with anything unless it benefits you." At that point, I lost it. I told her she had no right to act like I owed her childcare just because I don't have kids. I pointed out that I'd been paying for Dad's medications and had taken a week off unpaid to be there, while she'd been trying to pawn off her kids so she could have a vacation. She yelled that I was throwing money in her face and that I always had to make everyone feel small. Then she stormed out. Our mom told me later that Emma was crying to her, saying I humiliated her and that I always act like I'm better than everyone. Dad thinks Emma was way out of line, but Mom says I could have been kinder and maybe let Emma have a break. Now I'm back home, and Emma hasn't texted or called. I know she's venting about me to our cousins because one of them texted asking what really happened. I didn't respond because I don't want to feed the drama. I'm torn. I genuinely love my niece and nephews, and I don't mind helping occasionally, but I don't want to feel like the default option every time Emma needs a break. She's chosen a different life, and I respect that, but it feels like she resents me for not sharing her struggles. It's like no matter what I do, I'm the villain. If I help, I'm showing off. If I don't, I'm selfish. I keep replaying everything in my head. Maybe I should have just helped for those 3 days to keep the peace. But also, it feels wrong that she made assumptions about my time and dismissed my boundaries. I don't think it's fair that helping family always seems to mean drop everything and do what Emma wants. Our parents are trying to smooth things over, but I told them I need a break from all of it. My mom said, "That's exactly what Emma's saying about you," which I guess proves we're both stubborn. Part of me wonders if Emma's anger is really about something deeper, maybe jealousy or regret. But another part of me wonders if I'm just rationalizing my own coldness. So yeah, am I the asshole for refusing to babysit for my sister and for standing my ground when she accused me of acting superior? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she ruined my engagement. I, 30F, own a small 2-bedroom house that I bought 3 years ago after a lot of saving and working overtime. Around that time, my younger sister Chloe, 26F, was struggling. She had dropped out of college, was between jobs, and her ex had kicked her out. My parents couldn't take her in because they were downsizing and living in a small condo, so I let her move into my spare room rent-free, thinking it would be temporary. I told her she could stay for 6 months, maybe a year, as long as she helped with groceries and cleaned up after herself. At first, it was fine. Chloe was messy and sometimes moody, but we got along. I was dating my now fiancé, Evan, 32M, at the time. He's calm, patient, and honestly one of the kindest people I've ever met. He would come over often, help with little projects around the house, and he and Chloe seemed to get along well enough. But then, about a year into Chloe staying with me, she started making these small comments whenever Evan was around. Things like, "Must be nice having Guy do everything for you," or "I wish I could find someone like Evan, but I'm not as lucky." I brushed it off as teasing. Evan said not to worry about it, but over time it escalated. She started dressing up when she knew he was coming over, acting flirty, and making inappropriate jokes. One night, while Evan was helping me assemble a bookshelf, Chloe came into the room wearing a robe and nothing underneath. I could tell because it was wide open at the top. She pretended she didn't know he was there, then laughed it off. I confronted her afterward and told her that kind of behavior was not okay. She apologized in that fake way where she blamed me for overreacting. Fast forward a few months. Evan proposed to me in March of last year, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life. My parents were thrilled. My friends were thrilled. Chloe acted thrilled too, but something about her reaction fell off. She hugged me and said, "Wow, I didn't think you two would actually make it," then laughed like it was a joke. A week after our engagement party, I got a call from Evan late at night. He sounded upset and asked me to come over. When I got there, he showed me screenshots of messages Chloe had sent him on Instagram. She'd been messaging him for weeks, saying things like, "You deserve better than her. You know I've always liked you. And even if you ever want to know what being with someone exciting feels like, I'm here." Evan never responded, but he said he felt uncomfortable and didn't want to hide it from me. I was furious. I confronted Chloe immediately. She started crying and saying she was drunk when she sent them, that she didn't mean it, that she was lonely. Then she turned it around on me, saying I stole Evan because she liked him first. For the record, Evan and I had been together for 2 years before she even met him. That was the last straw. I told her she needed to move out immediately. She screamed that I was heartless, that family should forgive, that I was ruining her life. But I was done. She left 2 days later to stay with a friend. We went several months with little to no contact. My parents were upset that I kicked her out, but when I showed them the screenshots, even they said she had crossed a line. I thought that was the end of it. Then, 2 months ago, Chloe called me out of the blue, saying she had lost her job and her roommate was moving in with her boyfriend. She had nowhere else to go and wanted to move back in just for a few months. I told her no. I said that after what happened, I couldn't live with her again. She started crying and begging, saying she'd changed and learned her lesson. I told her I wish her the best, but I wasn't comfortable having her in my home again. Well, apparently she went crying to my parents, who are now furious with me. My mom said I'm punishing Chloe forever for a mistake and that it's unchristian not to forgive family. My dad said I'm being selfish and letting a house sit half empty when my sister is struggling. I told them forgiveness doesn't mean I have to put myself in a situation to be hurt again. Evan supports me completely. He said he'd move out before he'd live under the same roof as her again. Chloe has been posting vague things on social media about family betrayal and people holding grudges, and some relatives have started messaging me to say I should give her another chance. One cousin even said, "You're married now. It's not like she can steal him anymore." That made me feel sick because they're acting like I'm overreacting instead of protecting myself. I keep second-guessing now. Chloe's had a rough few years, and I know she's made bad choices. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. But another part of me remembers crying on my kitchen floor the night I saw those messages, thinking my sister had destroyed something beautiful out of spite. Last week, my parents invited me and Evan over for dinner, and when we got there, surprise, Chloe was there too. She hugged me like nothing happened and said, "Maybe now you'll stop ignoring me." I told her she had no right to ambush me like that and left. My mom called me dramatic. Evan said he's proud I stood my ground, but now my entire family is acting like I'm the villain for not forgiving and forgetting. So now I'm stuck wondering, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister move back in and for not wanting a relationship with her after what she did? Or am I just protecting myself and my marriage from someone who clearly doesn't respect boundaries? Everyone keeps telling me family is everything. But what do you do when your own family tries to destroy the best thing that's ever happened to you? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress. So I, 29F, have a bit of a complicated family situation. My mom passed away 5 years ago after a long battle with cancer. She and I were extremely close. My dad remarried about 2 years after her death, and though I was polite to his new wife, I kept my distance emotionally. It wasn't about her personally, it just felt too soon, and she was very different from my mom in every possible way. My mom was sentimental and a bit traditional. Before she passed, she left me a few personal items with letters attached to each. One of those was her wedding dress. She had preserved it meticulously, wrapped and boxed with a handwritten note tucked inside. In the note, she said she wanted me to have it, whether to wear, alter, or simply keep. She told me that if I ever got married, I could wear it, but if not, she hoped I'd keep it as a reminder of where I come from. I never even thought of it as something I owned to share. It was mine, but it was also deeply tied to her. I kept it safe in a climate-controlled storage box in my closet. Fast forward to about 3 months ago. My older brother, Luke, 32M, got engaged to his girlfriend, Jenna, 28F. I've always had an okay relationship with her, though I wouldn't say we're close. She's very outspoken and can be a little insensitive without realizing it. She's not a bad person, but she can be entitled at times. A few weeks ago, we were at my dad's house for dinner. Him, his wife, Luke, Jenna, and me. Jenna was talking about her upcoming wedding and all the things she still needed to plan. At some point, she turned to me and said something like, "You know, I heard your mom had a gorgeous wedding dress. It would be so meaningful to wear something that belonged to her, since she's Luke's mom too." I froze. I honestly thought she was joking at first, but she was looking at me expectantly, smiling like she was asking for a favor, not something completely out of bounds. I told her as gently as I could that my mom's wedding dress was something very personal to me, and that it wasn't available to borrow or wear. She looked surprised and asked why not, since it would stay in the family. I said I just wasn't comfortable with it, and that it was a sentimental keepsake. Luke chimed in, saying it would mean a lot to him if his fiancée wore their mom's dress. That floored me. My brother never mentioned the dress before, and I genuinely didn't think he cared much about that kind of thing. I told him I understood it might be meaningful, but our mom left it specifically to me, and I wasn't going to hand it over. The atmosphere got really tense. Jenna tried to backpedal a little, saying she'd take great care of it, and maybe just have it altered a bit. I said no again, and that altering it would destroy something I can never replace. After dinner, my brother called me privately and accused me of being selfish and possessive. He said I was acting like I owned Mom's memory when she was both of ours. He also claimed that Mom would have loved the idea of Jenna wearing her dress because she always wanted the family to be close. That part hurt. My mom truly valued family, but she was also big on personal boundaries. I told Luke that if he remembered her, as well as he claimed, he'd know she respected my decisions, especially about things she left specifically for me. Over the next week, the issue exploded. my dad got involved, and while he didn't take a firm side, he said it would have been nice if I could find a compromise, like letting Jenna borrow the veil or take a piece of the fabric to sew into her dress for remembrance. But even that made me uncomfortable. I didn't want anything from that dress altered, damaged, or separated. Then things escalated further when Jenna called me crying. She said she felt like I didn't accept her into the family, and that I was making her wedding harder for no reason. She said she'd always looked up to my mom through the stories Luke told and wanted to honor her by wearing something of hers. I told her I appreciated the sentiment, but that this wasn't the way to do it. She hung up on me. Now, most of my family is divided. My dad's wife said I should learn to share, and that I was being dramatic about just a dress. My cousin, who I'm close to, told me I was absolutely right, and that if Jenna wanted to honor my mom, she could wear her jewelry or incorporate something else, like her favorite flower, into the ceremony. The worst part was what happened 2 weeks ago. I went to check on the dress, something I hadn't done in a while, and found the storage box slightly open. The preservation seal was broken. The dress was still there, but clearly handled. I immediately called my dad. Since the only people who had access to my apartment are him and Luke, they both have spare keys because of an old emergency agreement we made years ago. My dad swore he hadn't touched it. Luke, however, hesitated before denying it. I told him flat out that if he or Jenna tried to take it, I consider it theft. He blew up, saying I was accusing him of something awful and making a big deal over an old piece of fabric. That was the last straw for me. I changed my locks and told both of them I didn't want to talk about the dress ever again. Since then, things have been frosty. Luke hasn't spoken to me except for one text that said, "I hope you're happy. You ruined a special moment for us." My dad's been trying to mediate, but it feels like he's more interested in keeping the peace than actually standing up for what's right. The guilt is starting to creep in, though. Part of me wonders if I was too rigid. My mom did love Luke deeply, and maybe she would have wanted her future daughter-in-law to feel included. But I can't shake how violated I felt when I saw that box open. Every time I picture someone else walking down the aisle in my mom's dress, someone who didn't even know her, it just feels wrong. The dress isn't a costume or a prop. It's one of the last tangible connections I have to her. So now I'm stuck wondering if I cross a line by refusing something that might have meant a lot to my brother, or if I'm justified in protecting what's mine. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's symbolic wedding because she uninvited my husband after using him for free labor. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, Liam, 31M, for 3 years. My sister, Chloe, 27F, got engaged last year to her fiancé, Jake, 30M. Chloe and I have never had a terrible relationship, but we're very different people. She's always been more of the main character type, very dramatic, loves attention, and always somehow makes every event about her. I'm quieter, more practical, and I hate conflict. When Chloe got engaged, she immediately threw herself into planning a huge wedding. The problem was that she didn't actually have the money for the kind of wedding she wanted. She said it would be a DIY, community effort wedding, which basically meant she wanted all of us to help make her Pinterest vision come true. Liam works as a carpenter and general contractor. He's really good with his hands and has done a lot of work for family members at discounted rates or for free. Chloe knew this, of course, and asked if he could help a little with the wedding venue. By help a little, she meant building an entire outdoor pergola for the ceremony, crafting 12 handmade wooden tables, and repairing part of the barn that she was renting for the reception. At first, Liam said he could do it, but he'd need help with materials and some compensation for the time, at least for the big projects. Chloe acted totally offended. She said, "Your family, it's for my wedding, it's not like I'm asking a stranger." My parents also jumped in, saying that since Liam had the skills, he should just do it as his gift. I didn't like the pressure, but Liam, being kind-hearted and wanting to keep the peace, agreed. He ended up working every weekend for almost 2 months. He built everything beautifully. The pergola looked like something out of a bridal magazine. The tables were stunning, the barn repairs solid. When Chloe saw everything, she gushed over it and even said, "You've literally made my dream wedding possible." But after that, she became kind of weird. She started making comments like, "I want all the attention on me and Jake. I don't want people focusing on the decorations too much," which was odd because she'd been bragging about the decorations before. Then she said something like, "I don't want people thinking the reason my wedding looks amazing is because of Liam. It's supposed to be about the love Jake and I share, not about carpentry." Liam laughed it off, but I could tell it rubbed him the wrong way. 2 weeks before the wedding, Chloe called me and said there had been a seating issue. She told me there wasn't enough room at the head table for both of us and our partners, so Liam would have to sit elsewhere. I said that was fine. We didn't need to sit at the head table. But then she said, "Actually, I think it might be better if Liam doesn't come at all. It's going to be a really intimate, emotional day, and since he's been doing all the construction stuff, people might look at him more like part of the staff and a guest. I don't want any weird dynamics." I thought she was joking at first. She wasn't. I asked, "You're uninviting my husband? After everything he did for you?" She said, "I'm not uninviting him. I'm just asking him not to come to the ceremony or reception. He can stop by before for photos if he wants." I told her that was completely disrespectful. She got defensive and said I was making it all about Liam. Then she hung up. I told Liam what happened, and he just said, "Forget it. I'm not going anywhere I'm not wanted." He was hurt, but calm. When I told my parents I wasn't going to go either if Liam wasn't invited, they were furious. They said I was punishing Chloe on her big day and that family comes first. I told them that my husband is my family, and I wasn't going to celebrate someone who treated him like hired help. The wedding went ahead without us. From the pictures posted online, everything looked exactly like Liam's work, beautiful and perfectly staged. Chloe even wrote this long caption about how love and hard work built this day, which made my blood boil. She never mentioned Liam once. A few days later, she called me sobbing. She said people at the wedding kept asking who made the decorations and the pergola, and when she said a family member helped, some people pressed for details. Apparently, Jake's parents found out Liam had done everything for free and called Chloe tacky for exploiting family labor. She blamed me for turning people against her by not showing up and causing drama. Now most of my family is split. My parents still think I should have been the bigger person and gone, even without Liam. My brother says Chloe got what she deserved. Some extended relatives think it was cruel for her to exclude my husband after using him. Chloe hasn't spoken to me since. She sent one long text about how my absence ruined her vibe, and it was supposed to be about love, not resentment. I don't feel bad about my choice. Liam spent dozens of hours of his time making her dream wedding possible. If she couldn't even have the basic respect to invite him properly, she didn't deserve to have me there either. Still, sometimes I wonder if I let pride get in the way of family harmony. My parents keep saying, "It was one day. You could have just gone for Chloe." But every time I picture her walking down the aisle under the pergola Liam built, pretending he didn't exist, it just feels wrong. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she uninvited my husband, who built almost everything for it. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after she ruined my wedding. So, some context first. I, 30F, got married 3 months ago to my husband, Leo, 32M. My older sister, Jenna, 35F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child. She was prettier, louder, and everyone loved her. My parents constantly compared us. I was the quiet, bookish one. She was the one getting applause for everything. Despite that, I always tried to have a relationship with her because, well, she's my sister. When I got engaged, Jenna immediately started making the whole thing about herself. She kept making comments like, "Don't worry, I'll help you not mess this up, and you'll thank me when people remember your wedding as classy." She even tried to convince me to use her as my maid of honor, but I'd already asked my best friend, Melissa. Jenna sulked for weeks over that. Anyway, fast forward to the actual wedding planning. Jenna kept pushing her ideas. She wanted her kids, 6M and 8F, to be the ring bearer and flower girl, even though Leo's nieces were already doing that. She said I was excluding her family. She also kept telling people that she was basically co-running the wedding, even though she wasn't doing anything but criticizing. The day of the wedding comes. I was nervous but excited. Everything was going smoothly until the ceremony started. Right before I walked down the aisle, my maid of honor ran up to me and said Jenna was causing a scene outside. Apparently, her daughter had spilled juice on her dress, and Jenna wanted me to delay the ceremony for 30 minutes so she could fix it and take new photos. I said absolutely not. We were already behind schedule. She threw a fit, shouting that I was putting my fake perfect day above family. My mom ended up dragging her away so we could start, but didn't stop there. During the reception, Jenna got drunk, like embarrassingly drunk. She grabbed the mic during the speeches and started ranting about how she raised me to be confident and how without her, I wouldn't even know how to talk to guys. Then she started crying, saying she couldn't believe her baby sister got married before her, and that life was unfair. Everyone was just staring in stunned silence. Leo's parents were horrified. I tried to take the mic from her, but she shoved me and called me ungrateful. The rest of the night was chaos. My dad took her outside to calm her down, but she ended up throwing up all over the venue garden and screaming that I had stolen her spotlight. It was the most humiliating night of my life. After that, I went low contact. I told her she wasn't welcome at any of my events until she apologized publicly. She texted a half-hearted, "Sorry if you were upset," 2 weeks later, but it was clear she didn't mean it. I didn't respond. Now, 3 weeks ago, Jenna called me crying. Her husband left her, and she was being evicted because she couldn't afford her rent. She asked if she and her kids could stay in my house for a few months while she got back on her feet. Leo was immediately against it. He said she humiliated me in front of everyone we know and that it wasn't our job to rescue her. I agreed, but I felt bad for the kids. Still, I told Jenna no. I said I couldn't live with someone who disrespected me so deeply and never took responsibility. She exploded. She called me a cold, selfish person who was letting children suffer because of a grudge. She said that family is supposed to help no matter what, and that I was punishing her for being honest. My parents got involved, of course. They told me I was being dramatic and that Jenna had a rough time, and I should forgive her already. I asked if she ever apologized to me, and they went silent. Then my mom said, "She's been punished enough." Since then, my entire family has turned against me. My aunt even posted a vague Facebook status about how some people forget blood is thicker than water. My dad said I was breaking the family apart. Even my grandmother called to say that if I didn't help Jenna, I'd regret it when she ended up homeless. But here's the thing, Jenna hasn't changed. She's still posting on social media about how toxic people show their true colors when you need them most. She's making it sound like I kicked her kids out on the street. Leo says if she moves in, he'll move out because he's not willing to babysit a grown woman who thrives on chaos. Now my mom is begging me to at least take the kids in until Jenna find a place, but I said no because I don't want to be pulled into her mess again. Jenna texted me yesterday saying, "You're dead to me," and then posted a photo of her crying with the caption, "Some people only care about appearances." I feel horrible. The guilt is eating me alive. I know the kids didn't do anything wrong, and I do care about them. But I also know if I let her in, she'll cause endless drama again. I'm torn between protecting my peace and helping family in crisis. To make matters worse, my cousin told me that Jenna has been telling people that I refuse to help because I'm jealous she has kids and I don't. Leo and I have been trying for a while, so that really hurt. Now people from my hometown are messaging me saying I should be ashamed. Leo says I need to block her and everyone who's harassing me. He keeps reminding me that this is the same woman who hijacked my wedding, humiliated me, and never showed remorse. He says I'm not heartless for setting boundaries, but every time I look at photos of my niece and nephew, I feel like the worst person alive. So, am I really the asshole for not letting my sister and her kids stay with me after everything she's done? Or am I just protecting myself from another disaster waiting to happen? Because honestly, sometimes I wonder if being the bigger person just means letting people walk all over you. And I'm so tired of doing that. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she sabotaged my engagement 2 years ago. I, 32F, own a small townhouse that I bought about 5 years ago. It's nothing huge or fancy, but it's mine, and it took me years to save up for the down payment. For a while, I lived there with my younger sister, Grace, 28F. She had just graduated from college, didn't have a steady job yet, and our parents had moved out of state, so I offered her the second bedroom rent-free for 6 months until she could get on her feet. At first, everything was fine. Grace helped with groceries sometimes, we'd have wine nights, and it honestly felt nice having her there. But after a few months, I started to notice she wasn't looking for jobs seriously. She'd sleep until noon, have friends over constantly, and spend all her time scrolling on her phone or going out. When I'd ask how the job search was going, she'd brush me off or say she needed a break from the pressure. Around the same time, I got engaged to my now husband, Liam, 34M. Grace and Liam got along fine initially, but as our wedding got closer, I noticed Grace becoming colder toward me. She made little digs about Liam's job. He's an accountant. She called him the human calculator and implied that I was settling. When I confronted her, she claimed she was just joking. Then came the engagement party. We hosted it at a restaurant, invited family and close friends, and things were going great until Grace got drunk. Like, embarrassingly drunk. She started telling people that Liam was boring and that she didn't think we'd last a year because I liked attention too much. I was humiliated. I told her the next morning that if she couldn't be respectful, she needed to move out. She cried, promised to do better, and I gave her 1 more month. A few weeks later, I found out Grace had texted Liam late at night. She sent him a long message saying she was worried about me, that I had a history of emotional instability, not true, and that she hoped he knew what he was getting into. Liam showed me immediately, and I was so angry I saw red. When I confronted Grace, she claimed she was protecting him. That was the last straw. I told her to pack her things and leave that weekend. She screamed, cried, accused me of abandoning her, but I didn't back down. After she left, she blocked me on everything for about a year. I heard from our parents that she moved in with some friends, had job issues, and eventually started therapy. I wasn't eager to reconnect, but last year, she reached out and apologized for how things went down. She said she'd been jealous, insecure, and immature, and that she was trying to make amends. I was polite but distant. I forgave her on a surface level, but I didn't feel ready to trust her again. Fast forward to now. Grace called me last month in tears, saying her lease ended and she couldn't afford a new place. Her hours got cut at work, and she didn't have anywhere else to go. She asked if she could stay with me, just for a couple months until she figured things out. I told her I needed to think about it. I talked it over with Liam. He was kind but firm. He said he supported whatever I decided, but that he didn't feel comfortable having her in our home again after everything she'd done. I called Grace back and gently told her no. I said I cared about her and wanted her to be okay, but that living together didn't work before, and it would be unfair to my husband to bring that situation back into our home. I offered to help her find a sublet, and even said I'd cover her first month's rent somewhere small. She completely lost it. She accused me of being vindictive and said she'd apologized and done everything I asked. She brought up how she'd supported me when I was a mess in my early 20s. I lived with her for 3 months when I got out of a bad relationship, but I also paid rent and groceries at the time. She said I was punishing her forever and that family shouldn't hold grudges. I told her I wasn't holding a grudge. I just didn't feel safe living with someone who had once tried to destroy one of the most important relationships in my life. She hung up on me. Now my parents are involved. They think I'm being too harsh and that I should give Grace another chance. They offer to pay me some money for her stay, but it's not about the money. It's about peace. I finally have a calm, stable home, and the thought of her moving back, it makes me feel anxious. My mom keeps saying family is forever, but I think that phrase gets used to excuse bad behavior way too often. The last straw came last week when Grace posted a long Facebook status about how some people hold your past over your head no matter how much you've changed. Everyone in our family knew it was about me. My cousin texted me to say Grace was couch surfing and telling people I'd abandoned her. It's been awkward and exhausting. I'll admit, a small part of me wonders if I'm being too cold. She's my sister, and I know she's struggling. I don't want her to be homeless. But the idea of having her back under my roof after what she did fills me with dread. I'm worried she hasn't changed as much as she says she has, especially since she's already turning family against me again. My husband says I've done enough and that it's time to set boundaries for good. I've offered help in other ways, but she's refusing anything that isn't a full invitation to move in. Our parents think I'm being prideful, and Grace has apparently been telling people that Liam manipulated me into saying no, which is just exactly the kind of thing that makes me feel justified in my decision. Still, I can't shake the guilt. She's my only sister. What she really has changed, and I'm just stuck in the past. But then I remember the text she sent, the humiliation of my engagement party, and how it took me months to rebuild trust with my now husband. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in, even though she says she's changed and has nowhere else to go. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she destroyed my trust and embarrassed me in front of my fiance's family. So I, 28F, bought my own house about 2 years ago. I worked my ass off for it, 3 jobs through my early 20s, living off ramen and used furniture, barely taking vacations. I was proud of it. My family was proud too, except my sister Haley, 25F. Haley's always been the more fun one, social, popular, always bouncing from one idea to another. She's never been able to hold a job for long. She'd move in with friends or boyfriends, then back to our parents, then repeat. Last year, she asked to move in with me just for a few months. She'd broken up with her boyfriend, lost her job, and said she was trying to get back on her feet. I hesitated because she can be chaotic, but she cried, promised to pay a small rent, help with chores, and not bring random people over. Against my better judgment, I said yes. The first month was fine. She was sweet, cooked a few times, and seemed to be looking for jobs. Then the little things started, her leaving dirty dishes in the sink, her laundry piling up, her taking my clothes without asking. I'd come home from work, and the house would smell like weed or cheap candles. She'd laugh it off and say, "Relax, you're such a mom." Things escalated when I came home early one day to find her hosting a group of people I'd never met. There was loud music, alcohol, and someone smoking inside. I was furious. She said she was just having a chill night, but I told her this wasn't her apartment. We argued, she called me uptight, and for a week she barely spoke to me. The biggest issue came a few months later when my fiancé, 30M, and I were hosting a small dinner with his parents and sister. It was kind of a big deal because his mom is formal and intimidating, and I really wanted everything to go well. I told Haley a week in advance, asked her to either join us and behave or go out for the evening. She said she'd be out. About an hour into dinner, she came home clearly drunk, like slurring her words drunk. She stumbled into the kitchen wearing a short dress and loud heels, interrupted the conversation, and asked if there was any wine left for the fun sister. I was mortified. My fiancé's mom looked horrified, and his dad awkwardly tried to laugh it off. I told Haley quietly to go to her room, but she started loudly complaining about how I act like I'm better than everyone since I bought a house, and that I stole her dream man because she met him first. Everyone just sat there in stunned silence. She finally went to her room after I basically dragged her down the hall. The dinner was ruined. My fiancé's parents left early, and I cried the rest of the night. When I confronted Haley the next day, she acted like it wasn't a big deal. She said I should have warned her how formal it would be, and that everyone gets drunk sometimes. I told her she needed to move out. She cried again, said she had nowhere else to go, that she'd pay me back, that she was just jealous because I have it all together. I felt bad, but I stuck to my decision. I gave her a month's notice. She moved out to stay with a friend, but she left her room a disaster. Stained carpet, broken blinds, makeup all over the dresser, and even a hole in the wall that she claimed was already there. I didn't speak to her for months after that. My fiancé's family still teases me gently about that memorable dinner, but I can tell it changed their impression of my household. Fast forward to last month, Haley texted me again. She said her roommate kicked her out and she needed a place to stay just for a few weeks. She promised she'd be respectful this time, that she'd learned her lesson. I told her no. She blew up at me, called me heartless, and said family is supposed to help each other. I reminded her what happened last time, and she said I was being petty over a single bad night. Then my parents got involved. They said she's struggling, that she's not built like me, and that it's cruel to let my sister be homeless when I have spare room. I told them she wasn't homeless. She has other friends, and maybe she should try living within her means instead of expecting people to bail her out. My mom cried. My dad said I was turning into one of those cold career people, and now everyone's mad at me. Haley's been posting cryptic stuff on social media like, it's crazy how money changes people, and family should mean something. I've had mutual friends message me saying I should just forgive her. My fiancé supports me completely, saying that letting her move back and would only create more drama. But part of me feels guilty. She's still my sister. I do love her, but living with her was honestly one of the most stressful experiences I've ever had. Every time I think about her drunk and screaming in front of my future in-laws, my stomach twists. But then I imagine her sleeping on some friend's couch, and I feel like the world's worst person. A few nights ago, she came to my door unannounced with 2 duffel bags. She looked exhausted, mascara smudged, and said her friend kicked her out for no reason. I told her I was sorry, but she couldn't stay. She started crying right there on my porch, yelling that I chose strangers over family. My neighbors probably heard the whole thing. I finally had to close the door. Since then, my mom has been calling every day, begging me to be the bigger person. She even offered to pay me to let Haley stay, which honestly made it worse because it felt like bribery. My fiancé says this is a test of boundaries, and if I cave now, Haley will never respect me again. He's right, but I still hate feeling like the villain. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering if I'm really being too harsh. Yes, she made mistakes, but maybe she truly is trying to grow. Or maybe I'm just tired of always being the responsible one, while she burns bridges and expects me to rebuild them. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister move back in even though she has nowhere else to go? Or am I finally just protecting my peace after years of chaos? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's second wedding, even though it's technically to the same guy. So I, 33F, have one younger sister, Hannah, 30F. Growing up, Hannah was always the golden child. My parents adored her. She was outgoing, charming, and effortlessly beautiful. I was the quiet, bookish one who stayed out of trouble, but somehow still got less attention. I thought I was mostly over the whole family favoritism thing until this situation blew up. 3 years ago, Hannah married Ryan, 32M. Their wedding was huge and over the top. My parents paid for most of it, which caused some tension because when I got married, 5 years before that, they gave me a modest amount and said they couldn't afford more. But somehow, when it was Hannah's turn, a miracle happened, and they footed almost the entire bill for her destination wedding in Mexico. I was a bridesmaid, paid for my own flight and dress, smiled through everything, and did my best to be supportive. Anyway, fast forward to about a year after their wedding. Out of nowhere, Hannah and Ryan separated. Apparently, Ryan had been texting an ex, and Hannah found out. She kicked him out immediately, and the family rallied around her. I mean, everyone was devastated for her, but she went full dramatic mode, crying phone calls, vague posts on social media about betrayal, and even a symbolic funeral for her marriage party where everyone wore black. I didn't even want to go, but my mom guilted me into attending. They were separated for about 8 months. Then suddenly, Hannah announced that she and Ryan were working things out. I was surprised, but I kept my thoughts to myself. Over the next few months, they got back together fully, and apparently, they renewed their commitment to each other privately. Fine, good for them. But now, here's where the current drama starts. About 2 months ago, Hannah called me and announced she and Ryan are having a re-wedding. Not just a renewal ceremony, but a full-blown, white dress, bridesmaids and caterer affair. And she wants it to be as big and beautiful as the day it should have been. She's even calling it Wedding 2.0, the real beginning. She told me I'm going to be maid of honor this time because I owe her since I wasn't emotionally there enough during her first wedding and divorce. I was floored. I told her I was happy for her, but I didn't think another full wedding made sense, especially since she and Ryan were never legally divorced. She said I was being negative and not respecting her healing journey. A week later, I got an invitation in the mail formal, embossed, 200 guests. I called my mom, assuming she would also think this was excessive, but she said Hannah deserves a fresh start, and if this helps her heal, we should all support her. Apparently, they're once again paying for almost everything. I told Hannah I wasn't comfortable spending thousands again for a dress, bachelorette trip, and gifts for what's essentially the same marriage. She got extremely upset and said I was undermining her happiness. I offered to attend as a regular guest instead of being in the wedding party, but she said that was emotionally abandoning her. Last week, my parents called me and said I'm breaking the family apart by refusing to stand by Hannah. My dad said, "You stood by her in the bad times. Now you need to show up in the good ones." I replied that I didn't think throwing another luxury wedding was a good time. It was a vanity project. My mom started crying and said I was jealous. For context, my husband, 35M, and I are currently saving for IVF, which is insanely expensive. We've had a rough few years financially, so the idea of spending a few $1,000s on this re-wedding feels absurd. My parents know about our situation and still think I should make it work for family. 2 nights ago, Hannah called again and told me I needed to fix my attitude because she doesn't want any negative energy at her celebration. I told her honestly that I thought what she was doing was kind of tone deaf, celebrating starting over with the same man who hurt her when she's never acknowledged any of her own toxic behavior in their marriage. She lost it. She said I'm bitter, judgmental, and always secretly hated seeing her happy. She uninvited me on the spot, then texted me later saying she'd forgive me if I apologized publicly during her bridal shower, which she's live streaming, by the way. I didn't respond. Now my parents have sided with her again, saying I should just say sorry because it's not worth all this tension. My husband thinks I did nothing wrong and that Hannah's wedding obsession is just her way of chasing validation. He also pointed out that every time Hannah's in the spotlight, my parents practically forget I exist. He's not wrong. Since this re-wedding was announced, my mom hasn't called me once except to talk about floral arrangements or to guilt trip me. It's now become the family's favorite drama topic. My aunt even called me to say I'm being selfish and holding on to old resentments. But honestly, I'm just exhausted. I've spent my entire life being the reasonable, accommodating sister, and this time, I just don't have it in me. I don't see how refusing to play dress up for my sister's marriage reboot makes me the bad guy. My mom said something that really stuck with me. You'll regret not being part of this when you're older. But I think what I'll regret more is continuing to let my family walk all over me for the sake of appearances. Hannah, meanwhile, has been posting cryptic TikToks about fake family and cutting out toxic energy. I'm half expecting an invitation to vanish from the guest list entirely. My dad told me privately that even if I don't go, I should at least send a heartfelt letter and a generous gift. I laughed because at this point, I'm out of both emotional energy and money. So, Reddit-style strangers of the internet, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's second wedding when she never even divorced the first time? Because according to my family, I'm the villain ruining Hannah's redemption story. But to me, it just feels like she's rewriting history, and I'm tired of being cast as the supporting character in it. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she got kicked out of her boyfriend's house, even though she helped me when I was broke years ago. So for context, I, 31F, bought a small townhouse about 3 years ago. It's not fancy, but it's mine. I worked 2 jobs for years to save for it. And finally having a place where I can lock the door and know it's just me inside feels like peace. I'm pretty private, and honestly, after living with people my whole life, I value quiet more than anything. My younger sister, Emily, 27F, has always been dramatic. She's the type who thrives on chaos. When we were kids, she'd always have huge fights with our parents, with her friends, with her boyfriends. I love her, but she exhausts me. I'm more of a keep my head down and get through it type, and she's burn it all down and start over. Years ago, when I was 24, I lost my job suddenly. I couldn't afford rent, and Emily, who had just started living with a roommate at the time, let me crash on her couch for about 4 months. She never made me pay rent, though I did buy groceries and tried to help with chores. I've always appreciated that. I even told her back then that I'd pay it forward someday. Fast forward to now, Emily's been living with her boyfriend, Tyler, for almost 2 years. Everyone in the family knew it was rocky. They'd break up and get back together constantly. A few weeks ago, she called me in tears, saying Tyler had kicked her out after a huge fight. She asked if she could stay with me for just a few weeks until I figure things out. At first, I hesitated. I have a spare room that I mostly use as an office, and part of me felt like it would be cruel to say no. But I also know Emily. A few weeks could easily turn into months. She's not good with boundaries, and she tends to take advantage of kindness, even if she doesn't mean to. I told her I needed to think about it. The next day, before I even gave her an answer, she showed up at my house with 3 suitcases, a box of makeup, and a cat I didn't even know she had. She said, "Tyler's being awful. I can't go back there. I'll just stay here for a bit." I was too shocked to say no right then, so I helped her carry her stuff in. She immediately took over my living room. Her stuff everywhere, loud phone calls, blasting music while she got ready every morning. Within 2 days, she had completely rearranged my kitchen because it wasn't functional. She even started inviting her friends over without asking, which drove me insane. The final straw came one morning when I woke up to find that she'd used my good towels to clean up her cat's accident, then threw them in the washer with bleach. I told her calmly that I needed my space back and that she had to start figuring out another place to stay. She said, "I'm looking, but I just need more time." 2 weeks turned into a month, then another. I was starting to feel like a guest in my own home. I couldn't work from my office because she'd move her vanity in there for better lighting. She kept borrowing my clothes and ruining them. And every time I brought up her moving out, she'd cry and remind me that she took me in when I had nothing. Eventually, I lost it. One night, I came home to find she'd thrown a little girls' night with 3 of her friends. There were wine stains on my rug, cigarette butts on the porch, and someone had used my expensive face cream as body lotion. I pulled her aside and told her she needed to leave by the weekend. She started crying again, calling me ungrateful, selfish, and heartless. Our mom called me the next day, saying Emily had told her I kicked her out with nowhere to go. Mom said I should remember what family means, and that Emily was just going through a rough patch. I told her that I can't keep sacrificing my peace for Emily's bad decisions. Mom said, "You owe her. She helped you when you were down." That word, "oh," stuck with me. Do I ove Emily. Yes, she helped me once, but I've also worked hard to build a life that doesn't spiral every few months. I even offered to pay for her to stay at an extended stay hotel for 2 weeks while she looked for an apartment, but she refused, saying it was too cold and lonely. When I told her again that she needed to leave, she said she couldn't believe I was turning my back on family and stormed out. Later that night, she came back with Mom and demanded to talk it out. Mom actually brought a casserole, like this was some family intervention. Emily started listing all the things she did for me years ago. How she didn't charge me rent, how she kept me from being homeless, how she always had my back. I said, and I'm grateful for that, but that doesn't mean you get to treat my home like a crash pad. She said she thought I'd changed, that I'd become cold and selfish now that I own a house. Mom sided with her and said, "You're lucky to even have space. Not everyone is as stable as you." I told them both that I worked for this stability, that it didn't just happen. Emily said, "You can't understand what it's like to have everything fall apart." I looked right at her and said, "Yes, I can. That's why I rebuilt it differently." Eventually, Mom left with her, muttering something about how family should help family. Since then, Emily has been couch surfing with friends, and my mom has been cold toward me. My dad, who usually stays out of drama, called me and said he gets why I needed space, but that maybe I could have given her 1 more month. Now, part of me feels guilty because I remember how helpless I felt when I was broke. Emily wasn't perfect then either, but she did help me. On the other hand, she didn't just need shelter. She wanted control, and I felt like a guest in my own home. A few friends said I'm totally in the right, that family help doesn't mean being walked over. But others said I owe her the same grace she gave me. It's eating at me, because I genuinely don't know if I've become the kind of person who forgets where they came from, or if I'm just tired of being the only one who grew up. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in and choosing my peace over family loyalty. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress and being accused of ruining her dream wedding. So this all blew up about a month ago, and my entire family is now divided over it. I, 29F, lost my mom 5 years ago to cancer. She was the kindest person I've ever known, and losing her crushed me. One of the things I inherited was her wedding dress, which she'd carefully preserved since she married my dad in 1987. She'd always told me I could wear it someday if I ever got married, but there was never any expectation. I just kept it because it was special and smelled faintly of her favorite perfume. I store it carefully in a garment bag in my closet. My older brother, 32M, Ben, is engaged to Lena, 28F. They've been together for 3 years, and I genuinely liked her until recently. She's bubbly, very image-focused, and big on sentimental aesthetics. She's also planning a huge rustic chic wedding that seems to be more about Instagram than actual sentiment. Still, I've tried to be supportive because Ben is happy, and that's what matters. About 2 months ago, Lena asked if she could see my mom's dress. I didn't think much of it and agreed. When she came over, she was gushing about how beautiful and vintage it looked. Then she dropped, very casually, that she wanted to wear it for her wedding. I was completely caught off guard. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. It was deeply personal to me, and honestly, I wanted to keep it in the condition my mom left it in. I said I could lend her jewelry or a hairpiece of mom's instead, but the dress was off limits. She immediately looked hurt and said she thought it would mean so much to the family to see it used again. I told her I understood her thought, but my answer was still no. She said she'd take amazing care of it and even offered to alter it slightly to fit better, which horrified me. I told her absolutely not. It's not a costume or a prop. It's my mom's wedding dress, and I'm not comfortable with anyone else wearing or altering it. She got quiet and then said, "You're being really selfish about something that could make everyone happy." I thought that was the end of it, but apparently she told Ben that I refused to honor mom's memory. Because a few days later, Ben called me and said I was overreacting and that letting Lena wear the dress would be a beautiful tribute. I told him Mom left it to me, not him. It wasn't up for debate. He got defensive and said I was trying to make everything about myself. We ended the call on bad terms. Fast forward 2 weeks, and my dad calls me. He's usually very chill, but he asked if I could just let it go because it would mean the world to Ben. I reminded him that the dress was mine and that Mom never said anything about passing it down to anyone else. He sighed and said, "You know your mother would have wanted peace, not fighting." That guilt me hard, but I still said no. Then, last month, I went to a family dinner, and the whole thing exploded. Lena brought up the dress again, this time in front of everyone, saying she hoped I'd reconsider. I tried to shut it down politely, but she kept going, talking about how important it is for family to share love, not possessions. My aunt chimed in that I was being cold, and another cousin said she'd never refuse a sentimental request like that. I felt cornered and said something I maybe shouldn't have. It's easy to share something that doesn't belong to you. Lena started crying, Ben got angry, and my dad asked me to apologize for the tone. I refused. I left early, feeling like the villain in my own family. A few days later, I found out through social media that Lena posted a long caption photo about being hurt by someone who values objects over love. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. Some mutual friends have messaged me saying I'm being possessive and holding on to grief. My best friend says it's obviously my decision, but my family is acting like I'm sabotaging the wedding. Now, Ben says if I don't make things right, I shouldn't bother attending the ceremony. That broke me. I love my brother, but I'm not giving up my mom's dress for anyone. For what it's worth, I'm not even planning to wear it myself. I just want to preserve it the way it was. My mom's handwriting is still pinned inside the bag. She left a little note that said, "For my daughter, when she's ready for her own love story." It's one of the few tangible things I have of her, and the idea of anyone else, altering it, sweating in it, or changing it just feels wrong. I've replayed everything in my head 100 times, trying to see if I overreacted or came across harshly. Maybe I could have explained more gently. But honestly, I don't think there's a way to say no to something like that without sounding selfish to people who don't understand grief. Now, my brother barely speaks to me, my dad keeps trying to mediate, and my aunt has started telling people I need therapy to let go of the past. I'm starting to wonder if they're right. Maybe I'm clinging too hard to something that's just fabric. But then I open the closet, smell that faint perfume, and remember how Mom looked when she wore it, how happy she was. I'm not sure how to move forward. I've thought about just skipping the wedding altogether, but that feels like letting Lena win, or worse, letting the dress become the wedge that permanently divides my family. Still, I can't shake the feeling that what they're asking for isn't really about honoring Mom. It's about making a pretty wedding story for social media. And if that's true, I don't think I'm the one disrespecting her memory. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress, even though it's caused a huge family rift? AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids move into my house, even though I have plenty of space. I, 35F, bought my first house last year after saving for nearly a decade. It's a 3-bedroom house with a small yard in a quiet neighborhood. For me, this place represents stability and peace after years of living paycheck to paycheck. I work in IT, single, no kids, and finally being able to decorate and live the way I want has been amazing. My sister, Julie, 38F, has 3 kids, 12M, 9F, and 5M. She's been a single mom since her ex-husband left 4 years ago. I love my sister and nieces and nephews, but she's always been chaotic, financially irresponsible, impulsive, and constantly expecting others to help her out of situations she created. Earlier this year, Julie lost her apartment because she couldn't keep up with rent after quitting her job for her mental health. I get that life can be overwhelming, but she had no backup plan. She's been bouncing between staying with friends, her ex's family, which didn't last long, and now, apparently, some motel. 2 weeks ago, she called me crying. She said the motel was too expensive, her car had broken down, and she was out of options. Then she asked if she and the kids could move in with me just until she gets back on her feet. Here's the thing. I already knew what just until meant. Every time Julie has temporarily stayed with someone, it turns into months, sometimes years. She doesn't clean up, she doesn't contribute, and she has a way of making her problems everyone else's responsibility. I told her I was sorry, but no. I offered to pay for 2 weeks at the motel while she figured out a more stable option, and even said I'd help her apply for assistance programs. She started crying harder and accused me of abandoning her and my nieces and nephews. Then my mom got involved. She called me saying that I was being heartless, that family helps family, and that if I have a 3-bedroom house, there's no reason I can't take them in. I told her that having space doesn't mean I have to give it up. One of the rooms is my home office. I work remotely, and the other is for guests. I like having peace, order, and quiet. Mom said she and Dad would take Julie in, but their house is much smaller, and apparently Dad put his foot down because the grandkids are too loud. So now I'm the bad guy because I'm the only one with enough room. I tried explaining that I've worked really hard to have this stability. I've spent years paying off debts, building my career, and saving up. I've always been the responsible one in the family, and it feels like every time Julie messes up, I'm expected to fix it. When I pointed this out to Mom, she said, "That's what family does when one member struggles." Julie started posting vague Facebook statuses about how some people care more about their furniture than family, and how her kids deserve better than cold hearts. Mutual friends began messaging me asking what happened, and a few hinted that I should just help her out. It's only temporary. But I know Julie. She doesn't clean up after her kids, doesn't enforce bedtimes, and will absolutely let them run wild. The last time she stayed with me, for 3 weeks after her divorce, they broke my TV, stained my couch, and left food everywhere. When I asked her to clean up, she said I was being uptight. I reminded her of that incident when she begged again, and she said, "That was years ago. I've changed." I asked if she had a job lined up or childcare plans. She said no, but she was manifesting opportunities. When I said no again, she called me selfish and said she'd never abandon me if the roles were reversed. That made me laugh bitterly because the one time I needed her, when I had surgery a few years ago, she never even checked in. Now my parents aren't speaking to me. Julie isn't answering my texts, and apparently, the kids have been asking why Annie doesn't want us. That part genuinely hurts, because I love them. I just can't live with their mother's chaos. A few days ago, my mom left a voicemail saying she hopes I can sleep while knowing my sister and her children are homeless. That message crushed me, but I still didn't cave. Instead, I called a local shelter and asked if they had openings or family assistance. They said yes, and I passed the info to Julie. She said she won't live in a shelter like some loser. That's when I realized that no matter what I do, it won't be enough unless it's exactly what she wants. Now, a few friends are divided. Some say I'm right to protect my peace and that enabling her won't help anyone. Others think I'm being cruel and that kids shouldn't suffer because of adult issues. It's been 2 weeks since that call, and I haven't heard from Julie or my parents. I see her posting photos of her kids in what looks like another motel, and I feel awful. But I also feel relieved. My home is quiet, clean, and calm. Still, every night, I wonder if I did the wrong thing. Part of me feels like a monster for saying no when my sister is struggling. But another part of me knows that letting her in would just lead to resentment, fights, and another financial mess. So I keep going back and forth. I don't want to be the villain in my family's eyes, but I also don't want to live my life cleaning up someone else's disasters again. AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids move in, even though I could technically afford to help. AITA for refusing to give my sister her dream wedding after she ruined mine 5 years ago. I, 32F, have one sibling, my younger sister, Kelsey, 29F. We were close growing up, but things started to change when we became adults. Kelsey has always been a bit entitled. Our parents doted on her because she was the baby, and over the years, she developed a habit of assuming everyone should prioritize her feelings. 5 years ago, I got married to my husband, Mark, 34M. It was a small but beautiful ceremony. We paid for almost everything ourselves, except my parents chipped in a bit for catering. We spent months planning it. Nothing extravagant, just an intimate day with family and close friends. The week before my wedding, Kelsey called me sobbing, saying her boyfriend of 2 years, Ryan, had broken up with her. She said she was devastated and couldn't imagine facing people at my wedding when everyone would be so happy and in love. I told her she didn't have to come if it was too hard emotionally, but she insisted she'd be fine. I even tried to make her a bridesmaid again. She dropped out earlier because she was too busy, but she said no, she wanted to just blend in. Well, she didn't blend in. During the reception, Kelsey got very drunk. She stood up during dinner and made a speech nobody asked for, crying about how she had lost the love of her life and how seeing me happy hurt so much. She went on about how she hoped one day someone would love her the way Mark loves me, but she didn't think she'd ever find that again. It was uncomfortable and awkward. My maid of honor had to gently pull her away from the microphone. That alone would have been bad enough, but then she threw up in the bathroom on my wedding dress train. I spent the rest of the night in a backup outfit I had packed just in case. Thank God I did. My mom and dad tried to calm me down, saying she was just emotional and didn't mean it, but the damage was done. For years afterward, I kept my distance. Kelsey apologized a few weeks later in a half-hearted way, saying she didn't remember most of it, but heard it was a mess. I told her it really hurt me, and she said I should let it go because it was 5 years ago and she didn't ruin the marriage, just the day. That sentence stuck with me. Fast forward to this year. Kelsey got engaged to Ryan again. Yes, the same Ryan who broke up with her before my wedding. They got back together 2 years ago, and now she's planning her wedding for next spring. Here's where it gets tricky. My parents offered to host her wedding on their property, a large countryside house with a garden big enough for events. It's sentimental because it's where Kelsey and I grew up. But the problem is the property technically belongs to me now. Our parents sold it to me and Mark 3 years ago when they downsized. We got it at a family discount, but it's legally ours. We've spent years renovating it and maintaining it. My parents live about an hour away now. Kelsey assumed she'd just have her wedding there. She didn't even ask me directly at first. She just mentioned in our group chat that she was so excited to get married at the family home. I privately messaged her and said we need to talk about that because it's our home now, and hosting 150 guests is a huge deal. She brushed it off, saying, "Oh, come on, you know Mom and Dad will help. It's tradition." I reminded her that we didn't even have our wedding there. She responded, "Yeah, because you chose some fancy venue instead of keeping it personal." That was the first red flag that she felt entitled. A week later, my parents called me. They said Kelsey was upset because I refused to let her have her dream wedding at the family home. I told them it wasn't a refusal. I just hadn't said yes. I explained the logistics: 150 people trampling our renovated lawn, parking issues, noise, cleanup, liability. We also have a toddler, and the idea of hosting a huge wedding while parenting a 2-year-old sounds like chaos. My mom said, "It's just one day. Kelsey deserves this after everything she's been through." I reminded her that Kelsey literally destroyed my wedding day, and she said, "You can't hold a grudge forever." So I told Kelsey no, firmly. I said I'm sorry, but it's not possible. She flipped out. She accused me of being petty and jealous that she's finally getting her happy ending. She said she's waited 5 years for her turn, and I'm punishing her for a drunken mistake. And she crossed the line. She said, "You owe me this. I've lived in your shadow forever. You got the better grades, the house, the husband who actually stayed. You can at least give me one day." I told her I don't owe her anything, and if she wanted a wedding venue, she could book one like everyone else. Now my whole family is divided. My parents think I'm being cruel and vindictive. My aunts think Kelsey is acting like a spoiled child. Mark supports me completely, but even he said it's sad how the family is tearing itself apart over this. Kelsey has now gone on social media, posting cryptic things like, "It hurts when your own sister tries to ruin your happiness," and "Some people never grow out of jealousy." A few mutual friends have reached out asking what happened, and I've had to awkwardly explain the situation. I don't enjoy holding grudges. I really don't. But I can't shake the memory of standing there in a stained backup dress while my sister cried about her breakup into a microphone at my wedding. I spent years trying to move past it, and the first time she needed something from me, it was like none of that mattered. Part of me wonders if I should have just said yes to keep the peace. But the bigger part of me feels like saying yes will be telling her that she can walk all over me forever, that there are no consequences for her actions, just excuses. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister have her wedding at my house, even though she says I'm ruining her dream day. AITA for refusing to give my younger brother my inheritance, even though it's causing a family feud. So, this is going to be long, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 34M, have a younger brother, Alex, 28M. Our parents passed away in a car accident about 6 months ago, and the will is now being executed. The will is relatively straightforward. Everything is left to me, with a note from my parents saying they trust me to use it responsibly and to think about my brother if I see fit. Before I go further, I want to give a little context about Alex. Growing up, Alex was always a bit reckless and impulsive. He had a few stints in college, dropped out of 2 different programs, and bounced between jobs. My parents, understandably, worried about his future, but they never cut him off entirely. They just helped him get by when things got rough. After our parents' passing, I was left with a sizable inheritance, mostly money and some property. My first instinct was to use it to secure my own future, pay off debts, buy a house, and invest. Alex, however, immediately started dropping hints about wanting a share of it. At first, I thought he was joking, but it became clear he was serious when he started making plans, assuming I would give him a significant amount. He argued that I shouldn't have it all because we grew up in the same household and experienced the same hardships. He said that my parents wouldn't have wanted me to have it all and that he deserved some too. I reminded him that the will clearly left everything to me and that our parents trusted me to decide what to do with the money. Then things got more intense. Alex told our extended family that I was being greedy and selfish, and suddenly everyone was calling me, asking if I would share the inheritance. Cousins, aunts, uncles, they all seem to take Alex's side. I try to explain that legally, I'm not obligated to give him anything, and morally, my parents specifically trusted me to make these decisions. But apparently, that didn't matter, and now I'm being painted as the villain. Alex also has a history of being manipulative, and I caught him trying to get a lawyer friend to pressure me into giving him a portion. That's when I finally drew the line. I told him directly that I'm not giving him any of the inheritance beyond helping him in ways that don't involve handing over large sums of money. I offered him help finding a new job and suggested he talk to a financial advisor, but he refused and accused me of playing favorites with myself. The breaking point came last week. Alex sent me a message saying he was moving out of the apartment he was renting and declaring independence, which I assumed meant he planned to start using some of my inheritance anyway. I calmly told him I would not give him money, and he exploded, saying he can't believe I would betray my own family and that our parents would be rolling in their graves. Then he started calling other family members, claiming I'm a terrible brother who stole from him. Now, the family is split. Some understand my point of view and support me legally and emotionally, but many others are furious at me for not sharing what they see as a joint family inheritance. My parents' friends even called me, asking me to do the right thing and give Alex some of the money. It's really wearing me down because I feel like no matter what I do, people will think I'm heartless. I've considered compromising, like giving him a small portion, but I honestly don't think it's fair. He hasn't worked consistently, hasn't saved anything, and has always relied on my parents and me for support when he wanted it. Giving him money now feels like rewarding a pattern of irresponsibility. I want to help him succeed, but not at the cost of enabling the same behavior that got him into trouble in the first place. My friends and a few family members say I am justified and that it's my inheritance to manage as I see fit. Others are calling me selfish and cruel. Even some of my closest friends seem torn because they understand the legal side, but also feel that family should be treated with more generosity. I also worry that if I don't give in, Alex might take legal action, although I don't think he has any real case. The thought of family therapy or mediation has crossed my mind, but I feel like anything I do will just be seen as giving in rather than a fair compromise. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my younger brother my inheritance, even though it's causing a massive family feud. I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but the backlash is overwhelming, and I don't want to be perceived as a villain in my own family. Character count, 6,257 if you want. I can craft an even longer, more intricate version hitting closer to 7,000 characters with more family dynamics, flashbacks, and escalating tension. It would read almost like a full novelized Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house while he gets back on his feet. I, 28F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend, Alex, 30M, in a pretty nice neighborhood. I work as a graphic designer and Alex is a software engineer. We've been together for 5 years, and we love our space. It's cozy, organized, and our sanctuary. My sister, Jenna, 26F, is engaged to Mark, 27M. Jenna and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's very demanding and tends to guilt-trip people if she doesn't get her way, but I've always tried to support her when it really matters. About 2 months ago, Mark lost his job. According to Jenna, the company he worked for folded suddenly, and he hasn't been able to find something steady since. I was sympathetic at first and asked if he was applying to other jobs or considering temporary work. Jenna assured me he was doing everything he could, but she implied it was really stressful for him. A week after that conversation, Jenna called me crying. She told me Mark had nothing left and that they needed help. Specifically, she wanted me to let Mark move into my apartment for a few months until he gets back on his feet. I was stunned. My apartment isn't huge, and Alex and I both value our personal space a lot. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable having someone move in long term, especially since he's not family in the strict sense, and we've never lived together. Jenna got upset and said I was being selfish and unsisterly. She kept insisting it would only be a temporary thing and that she'd pay rent or help with groceries. I explained to her that even if he paid rent, it's not just about money. My apartment is small, and adding a third person who we don't have a living history with would change our dynamic completely. I also pointed out that this was their problem to solve, and that Mark needs to take some responsibility instead of relying on me. Jenna cried again over the phone, saying I was letting the family down and accusing me of not caring about her fiancé's mental health. Fast forward a couple of weeks, Jenna starts hinting that I don't love her enough to help and posts subtle messages on social media about how her future husband is struggling and she just wants to help him without being a burden on her family. My friend started noticing and asked me if everything was okay because Jenna was framing it like I was refusing to help a family member in need. I tried a different approach. I offered to help Mark look for jobs, review his resume, and even offered him a small loan if needed. I thought this would show Jenna I wasn't being unkind, just firm about my boundaries. She took the offer as a half-hearted attempt and said it didn't mean anything if he couldn't live with us. A few nights ago, Jenna showed up at our apartment unexpectedly. She knocked on the door around 8 p.m., clearly upset, and started begging me to let Mark stay just for a week or two. Alex and I were having dinner, and I refused. I told her politely but firmly that it wasn't happening. She started crying and raised her voice, saying we were ruining her engagement and making Mark feel worthless. Alex asked her to leave, and she eventually left, still yelling something about me being selfish. After that, she's been texting me almost daily, alternating between guilt-tripping and pleading. She also started tagging me in Instagram posts about struggling fiancés and family support. A couple of our mutual friends messaged me asking why I'm being so harsh to Jenna and Mark, which only made me more frustrated. I talked to Alex about it, and he fully supports my decision. He says our home is our sanctuary, and we shouldn't feel pressured into something that would make us uncomfortable. He also pointed out that Mark could be staying with his own family, friends, or even renting a cheap place nearby instead of imposing on us. I know people will say he's family now, or it's temporary, just help them out. But the thing is, I don't feel comfortable changing my life and daily routines for someone we barely know and who hasn't taken independent steps to support themselves. I also feel like if I give in, it will set a precedent for them to keep asking for favors, and it will strain my relationship with Alex, who values our space as much as I do. Since I refused, Jenna has been sending passive-aggressive texts and subtly criticizing me in front of other family members. Some relatives have started hinting that I should help my sister in her time of need, and that I'm being unreasonable. I feel like if I let them in, it's only going to cause more drama and resentment later on. But at the same time, I don't want to appear heartless. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my apartment, even though he's temporarily unemployed and needs help. I know some might argue that family should help family, but it feels like a huge overstep for something that isn't an emergency like a natural disaster or hospitalization. I genuinely want to help Mark, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't disrupt my life or create long-term tension. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she tried to dictate every aspect of my house and personal life. I, 32F, live in a fairly modest 2-bedroom house that I bought myself a few years ago. I work from home, and I've spent the last several years making it my sanctuary. I love hosting small gatherings, but I also have my routines and boundaries, and my home is very much my personal space. My younger sister, Lydia, 28F, has always been a bit dramatic and demanding. Growing up, our parents often indulged her whims, and even now, she expects people to bend to her wishes. She got engaged 6 months ago and immediately began telling me how excited she was for me to host her wedding. She doesn't want a big venue. She wants my house inside and out. At first, I was hesitant, but I tried to be supportive. I said I'd think about it. But then the demands started rolling in, and they escalated quickly. Lydia insists that every inch of my house be wedding ready, which includes stripping the furniture out of the living room, covering floors with rented carpets, moving my personal bookcases, and repainting rooms to match her color scheme. She also wants me to take a week off work before the wedding to help with prep, despite the fact that my job is deadline-heavy and working from home doesn't mean I have free time. I told her I wasn't comfortable with most of this and offered compromises, like renting a small tent in the backyard or hiring a decorator to handle furniture arrangements. She rejected every idea, saying it wasn't her dream vision. The final straw came when she asked me to sleep in a hotel for a week before the wedding because she wants to have a calm, clutter-free environment to rehearse her vows and do photos. I explained that I live here, that it's my home, and that I can't just leave for an entire week. She got extremely upset and accused me of being selfish. After this, I told her I couldn't host her wedding in my house under these conditions. I explained I would love to support her in other ways, like helping with planning, attending dress fittings, and assisting with DIY projects if she wanted, but my house is not available as a venue. She blew up at me, claiming I was ruining her big day and that I didn't care about her happiness. My parents got involved, saying I should be more accommodating and that families should help each other, but I didn't budge. Since then, Lydia has stopped speaking to me, and my parents are trying to mediate. They argue that my refusal is extreme and that I could make minor sacrifices for her. But I genuinely feel like she crossed a line, asking me to give up my home, rearrange furniture, repaint, and essentially live elsewhere for a week feels like an unreasonable expectation. I also feel like she's disregarding my work and personal boundaries entirely. I'm not heartless. I've offered to help in other ways. I've suggested renting a venue, hiring an event coordinator, or even hosting a small pre-wedding dinner at my house instead. But she refuses anything short of turning my entire home into her wedding venue. I get that weddings are important, and I want her to have a beautiful day. But the way she's approached me feels manipulative, as though she's trying to guilt me into doing something that would be extremely inconvenient and stressful. I'm also worried that if I agree to any part of this now, it will just encourage her to escalate further. I can already imagine her asking me to host post-wedding brunches, photo shoots, or other events, using my home as a constant backdrop. I have no problem supporting her in meaningful ways, but sacrificing my entire living space and comfort for this seems unreasonable. My friends are divided. Some say I'm right to enforce my boundaries, while others think I'm overreacting and should bend a little for my sister's big day. I really don't want to create a permanent rift, but I also feel like giving in would set a precedent that my home and life are negotiable whenever she wants something. So AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding under these conditions, even though it has caused tension with her and our parents. I know this is going to cause family drama, but I want to stand my ground and protect my home and personal space. I'm trying to be fair and supportive without being walked over. This situation has been stressful, and I keep questioning if I'm wrong for standing my ground. But at the same time, I don't feel like anyone should dictate what I do in my own house, especially when it requires a significant personal inconvenience and disruption to my life. I'd appreciate honest opinions about whether I'm being unreasonable or if I'm justified in protecting my home and boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter attend a special trip after her father made plans without consulting me. I've, 38F, been married to my husband, Mark, 42M, for 6 years. He has a daughter, Lily, 15F, from a previous marriage. When I first married Mark, I didn't expect to have an instant connection with Lily. She was shy, quiet, and obviously still adjusting to the fact that her dad had a new partner. Over the years, though, we've built a solid relationship. She's more like a younger sister to me than anything else, and I genuinely care about her. Here's the situation. Mark and Lily's mom had always been amicable, but since her remarriage, their communication has dwindled. That's fine. I never really involved myself unless it affected Lily directly. Mark and I have our own family routine, which includes Lily spending weekends with us, homework sessions, family dinners, and some extracurriculars she enjoys. We also have a strict rule. If there's a school-related trip or anything that costs money, we talk about it together and plan accordingly. It's always worked well, until last week. Lily came home on a Friday after school, glowing. She told me that her dad had signed her up for a leadership retreat over the weekend at a fancy resort in another state. She was excited and begged me to let her go. I froze because I hadn't heard a single word about this. I immediately called Mark, assuming it was some kind of misunderstanding. Mark sounded defensive right away. He told me that he thought it would be a great experience for Lily, that it was fully paid for by some sponsorship program, and that I was overreacting. He said he didn't need my approval because it was his daughter, and he thought I was being controlling. I told him I wasn't being controlling. I just couldn't let Lily go on a weekend trip out of state without knowing more about the program. Who else was supervising the kids? What was the itinerary? Where exactly were they staying? What kind of safety measures were in place? He brushed it off, claiming I was making a big deal out of nothing. I ended up sitting Lily down and explaining that, as much as I loved her and wanted her to have fun, I couldn't feel comfortable letting her go on a trip I knew nothing about. She started crying and accused me of trying to ruin her weekend and of not trusting her father. That hit me hard because my whole point wasn't about not trusting Mark or Lily. It was about safety and planning. Mark didn't come home that evening, claiming he was handling the trip logistics. The next morning, he called again and raised his voice at me, saying that if I didn't let Lily go, he would go by himself and pick her up. He accused me of trying to turn Lily against him and of making him feel unwelcome in our own home. I stuck to my guns. I called the retreat organizers directly, which took some digging, and confirmed my fears. It wasn't actually a sponsor program. It was a private event that cost over $1,500 per child. Mark had lied to me about the sponsorship because he didn't want to deal with my questions or objections. The organizers also confirmed that parental supervision was minimal, and many of the activities involved late-night sessions and team-building exercises that were not age-appropriate for a 15-year-old. When I told Mark, he blew up. He accused me of meddling and said I was undermining his authority as a parent. He threatened to go pick Lily up anyway and insisted I had no right to stop him. Lily was caught in the middle. She was angry at me, crying, but she also looked worried when she realized that the trip wasn't what her dad had told her. The day of the trip, Mark refused to let me speak to Lily before he left with her. I didn't try to stop them physically because I didn't want it to escalate, but I did call the organizers again and inform them of my concerns. They said I had no legal right to stop her attendance, which I knew, but it didn't make me feel any less uneasy. After the trip, Lily came home. She seemed quiet, withdrawn, and not at all excited. When I asked her about it, she admitted that the retreat was nothing like her dad had promised. The activities were intense, some of the supervisors were inattentive, and she felt pressured to participate in things she wasn't comfortable with. She said she felt trapped and didn't enjoy it at all. Mark was defensive when I brought it up. He said Lily was exaggerating, that she just needed to toughen up, and that I was overreacting. The tension between us has been intense since then. Lily now sometimes seems caught between choosing who to side with, and I feel guilty because I didn't want this to happen, but I also didn't want to let her go on something potentially unsafe. My friends are split. Some say I was right to stand my ground, that as a step-parent, I have a responsibility to look out for her safety. Others say I should have trusted Mark more and let Lily make her own decision. I'm starting to wonder if I overstepped. I genuinely try to protect Lily, but now I feel like I might have made things worse by challenging Mark so directly. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter go on the trip after her father lied about it. Character count, 6,447 if you want. I can draft an even longer version that hits closer to 7,000 characters, adding more tension, backstory, and the aftermath between all three of them. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.